right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A. I'm Jay, your host, and this is the Coffee Q&A. We normally do this live stream most Monday through Friday. So if you're interested in talking about coffee, learning about coffee, that's what we do here. So today we are in the roasting space, doing some roasting because I gotta do some roasting because I'll be away next week. So we gotta roast up a bit of coffee and get it going. So I just dropped the load, and now it's time to put a new load in. So as you can see here, this is a Giesen W6A, 6 kilo Giesen roaster, and 437, 440. All right, so we've got everything rolling. Coffee has been loaded into the machine and is now beginning its journey onto greatness. And then we need to prepare another round of coffees. So what we're doing here is we're using 15-pound batches of coffee and running, right now this particular coffee is the espresso blend, the Espresso 99. And right now this is a blend of two different coffees, a regular washed and then a natural processed coffee. And in this particular case, we're running right about 30% natural for this coffee. Yeah. So that means that we're doing about 11 pounds of the washed and then 4 pounds of the natural. Each of these scoops can hold up to like 3 pounds or so. Like what you're seeing, this phase of what we're doing, the roasting, is fairly simple, right? This is we've got a predetermined recipe that we're going to be using, which is this ratio of the coffees. And then we're just going to put them in a bucket. But leading up to all of this is a lot of testing and tasting to see which coffees you really want to use. And that's really, to me, the more difficult part of the journey with coffee blending is that you have an idea or a standard that you're trying to meet, and then you have to find the coffees and put those together in a way that will fulfill that ideal, right? So to me, that's really the most difficult part about Coffee Co. Good morning to you. And so here we are, and this is how it looks. So fairly medium roast, definitely not the medium that the Costco coffee had. And actually that's pretty much cooled. I just got to get it ready. Spro today. Okay, so we're going to put that now in here. So with coffee roasting, you really just, you want to have it roast, you want to have it cool down in the cooling tray in about 4 minutes, and cool just to the point that you can hold on to it, it's not burning your hand. And that really is one way to control the quality, because if you let it stay hot for a long time, you can start to dissipate and lose some of the flavors of the coffee. It's always about trying to, not to have too much time temperature abuse, as with any kind of food product. All right, that's pretty good. Now, if you have any questions about coffee or roasting, let me know. Oh, the sound is gone. Sound is back. Coffee Cubs asking, what origins are you roasting? So we're using Honduras and Brazil today. And then I've got some decaf here from Colombia, as well as a Nicaraguan coffee to maybe mix in. Now, if you're not too familiar with a coffee roaster, we have something called the trier. And the trier is this thing. And so what it does, it has this weight so that it faces down, because there is a scoop, essentially, that is, no questions, living stuff. Most of my stuff is festool thinking, so I understand. So this is kind of like a big spoon, and it's unwinding. And you basically put it in, and it grabs a little bit of the coffee, because as you can see here, there's a waterfall, because the drum is rotating this way, and there are paddles on the drum that are throwing it. And so as it waterfalls, you can just stick this in here and get a little bit of a sample, and this allows you to see. It allows you to pull a little bit of sample and see the progress of the coffee as it's roasting. So right now we are in kind of my favorite part. It's kind of got this straw hay aroma, and basically what's happening, we've got coffee that's green. Like, we put it in green, and the green coffee, of course, is about 9 to 11% moisture content. Hopefully not 11, but somewhere between there. And what we're doing is we're driving that with heat in order to lower the moisture content, in order to allow the Maillard reaction and the browning and all of the cooking of the coffee to happen. And the early phase, so when you put the coffee in, and through this kind of light hay-colored phase, we're actually drying out the coffee. We're pushing out, good morning to you, power plant. We're pushing all the heat into the coffee and pushing the moisture out. And that's one of the main things at the early phase. And then once it starts to turn brown, like we're getting close to that point, like you can see here, it's getting a little bit more toasty looking. We're going to start to get closer to where the sugars are going to start to convert and brown and cook and become the goodness that we know. Now, this area, yeah, like this is kind of like more Arabic style coffee. Of course, we'll check that for outages. Hopefully we won't have too many today. Yeah, the sound dropped out a little while because I got a call. Because unlike in the studio, I'm using the phone today. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm picking all these beans that during the trying that have fallen into the cooling tray. These are under roasted, so we want to get rid of them. Anton says, I'm thinking about getting a mini roaster for home, torn between the Cafe Logic Nano E7 and the Kaleido Sniper. And one of my good friends, she has the Cafe Logic Nano E7, and I went to go see it at the show, because she lives in Asia, and she was like, what do you think about it? I said, let me go check it out at the show. And I think that seems like a really nice roaster. I would consider buying that. So I think I don't think you go wrong in that direction. Why are you thinking about Linux all of a sudden? Are you programming computers now? So right now we're running about 366 Fahrenheit. It's interesting because here in this roaster is set up for, I guess it's not Imperial, but for Fahrenheit. But my other roaster is actually set up for Celsius, so I'm more used to roasting in Celsius than I am Fahrenheit. And actually, when I used to go to the Roasters Guild convention where we would do roasting on, the manufacturers that sent all these machines, and of course, since it's in the United States, everything's set up for Fahrenheit. And I used to sit there and struggle because I was like, I don't know what 300 degrees means. 300 degrees to me means that it's burned all to heck. All right, so we're starting to get there. We're getting a little bit of first crack. You're starting to see a lot more browning. We're going to go a little bit more darker. We're 384 degrees and 9 minutes 55 seconds total elapsed time. So we're kind of like right in the area that I would like to be for first crack, right around 9 to 10 minutes, and then we should probably finish closer to 12 or maybe 11:30. Yeah, now definitely, I don't know if you can hear that, but the first crack is definitely rolling full. So how I normally gauge it, and this is something I just kind of learned on my own, it's not exactly how a lot of people who talk about coffee roasting will do it. They will talk about time. Let's say they want to talk about a time after the first crack. I think they talk about the inception of first crack. I'm never paying that close attention, so I never really notice the beginning of first crack, plus I don't want to think about it. So I've just always calculated my times based on the end of first crack. So when first crack, like right now, we're in the middle of it. Like it's nice and strong, but once it finally ends, then we're going to start, then I typically will start thinking about, do I need to go so much time past the end of first crack? Yeah, like you can see here, it's getting darker. Now all the coffee that falls in here, like I just get rid of because it's not fully roasted, and it could lead to someone's cup not tasting very nice. .417 degrees Fahrenheit, so we'll probably end around 4:30. Turn the cooling tray on. Almost there, baby. Look at that. Ooh. I just want to let it glide a little bit more. Really, I do it a lot more by feel. Sometimes you can do it by temperature, but right now this is all by feel. I am using the time and the temperature as a reference, but more, really I'm just looking to see what I like. Oh, daddy. 437, 1222. Okay, perfect. Nice. Now what I'm doing is I'm making sure that we have the temperatures on the rise before we load in the next load. Then you want to reset the timer and get that ready. I normally start the timer once the coffee has fully entered the drum. When you do it, whether you do it when you first start or not, that's kind of up to you. The important thing is that you just do it consistently so that you have, a standard baseline to work with. So while the idea of roasting is maybe kind of like, maybe kind of romantic, the actual process of roasting in a production setting is rather just tedious and boring. Well, not necessarily boring, but it's not it's not the wild, like, fantasy you may have about it. All right, so that was, I prepared 4 batches of our espresso, so now we're gonna go and do Now I want to put it together. Here's another blend, oops, for a different client who wanted a more heavier version of, oh, there's too much in there. A heavier version of, a heavier natural version of the espresso, so, or that's kind of my interpretation of it. Okay, so now we got that ready. And it's always about trying to keep everything ahead and loaded. So I've got, coffee. The next batch is out in the hopper. And then the batch after that is in the bucket. Now, if you wanted to, you could go multiple buckets and have it all measured out, but I don't really have that many buckets, so I'm not really worried too much about that. Power plant says, okay, thanks. I'd go air roaster over a drum any day. I'm kind of the opposite. I prefer drum over air. But I think that if you're really into like lighter roasted or like brighter coffees, then the air roasting definitely gives an advantage to that kind of thing. That's why a lot of the pretty boys like to use the low-rings, because it kind of has that air roasted quality while giving them the illusion of legitimacy with the drum. Anton says, I'm thinking about Linux because Microsoft is trying to force switch to Windows 11 and it sucks. So is Windows 11 terrible? Like, I know nothing about Windows. I'm merely a Mac person. I've been a Mac person pretty much most of my, I've been an Apple person all of my computing existence since like 1979. So I don't know much about PCs. I had a PC we used to run our accounting system on a PC, but I never really used it. It's really terrible. But I was trying to help my aunt the other day with moving, copying files to an external drive, and it's not that hard. I bet for someone that comes from a strictly Mac environment, it's like it is a little bit different. Proplan says Ikawa is also good if you don't want to roast a lot at once. They have been around. Ikawa. In the professional ranks, people love Ikawa. God, there's so much Ikawa like worship out there, and I can see the value in an Ikawa. I can see why people like it. 45 or especially at the time, I think it was 60 grams of coffee was the max batch. Now they have a new version that has a bigger one, but I was like, okay, I'm going to spend $3,500 on a roaster that can only do 60 grams. What kind of craziness? And then they're like, well, you could roast on site and you can roast in person and do it all this, and it's totally automated. It works from your iPad. And I'm like, I got to buy an $800 iPad too on top of the $3,500. But for me, it was really like, oh, that's fine. But really, for me, I was like 60 grams. Hell no. I could spend that much money, $3,500, and get like a double barrel Javits Burns sample roaster, and crank out, you know, hundreds of grams in an hour instead of 60. I was like, that's. But you know, everyone loved it, and I, you know, to the credit of Ikawa, I did. One of the very best espressos I've ever had in my career was roasted on a little Ikawa at the moment. So I can't, I don't hate on it, but I'm just like, I just wouldn't have bought it. I probably wouldn't buy one today. And Anton says Ikawa is a crazy jump in price, and I don't know if Ikawa is worth it. I don't know. Did you make a post on your socials about this lap? I did not. I think no one is here because you said Wednesday and Thursday. I know I was going to be off, but I thought, you know what? Let's do today. And if they come, great. If they're not here, that's all right too. We miss them all the same. What are we now? 350 degrees. I just kind of decided at the last moment to do this because I had a little bit of time. So I was like, okay, let's do this now. Anton says, I had to jump. All right, my friend, good to see you. Coffee Cove says, I agree about Windows 11, Anton. All mostly do is watch videos and use MS Word, and I don't like learning new OS. Is it completely different? Is that what 11 is about? I did buy a new laptop as I can't upgrade my old laptop that I currently use. You can see which companies have VC backing, like Moonwake. They spend money on all the fancy tools like color separators. Oh yeah, that's definitely not me. Like, I don't have VC backing. And for roaster, the VC backing, oh yeah, for sure. If you are like one of these pretty boys that have VC capital money, and you know you can expend your money, I mean, certainly, but I've never been that person. All right, we're getting closer. 370. We're going a little bit closer now. A little bit closer. Yeah, it would be nice to have VC backing. I wouldn't mind that. Well, I wouldn't mind it. I don't know. You know, having unlimited resources is great, but having like serious control of what you do is a lot better. Like, I've been in businesses where we had a lot of capital to work with. Like, I remember when I first made the move from independent productions into studio features many years ago. I remember I arrived at I was doing casting at the time, and I arrived at the production office, and one of the unit coordinators was showing me around. She was like, you know, here's our like office like supply closet. Take whatever you need. And I was like, take whatever I need? Like, I don't have to fight for pencils? You know, and then you've got like hundreds of millions of dollars in the budget. You're like, oh my gosh, crazy. Like, we were shooting a movie once called Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman and Will Smith. And I was doing 24-frame playback and video assist. And we were shooting this scene where we were blowing up this, good morning to you, Paige, we were blowing up a factory. So if you ever watch the movie, there's a scene where Gene Hackman and Will are in his like lair, and they have to blow it up. So they drive out and they blow it up, and I was one of the people that was blowing it up. So we were in a near field box. They put us in a box, like within the blast zone, to record or to run film on it. We had like 3 cameras in this box. And back then we were really filming with actual 35 millimeter film, not, like that's one thing I gotta be honest with. Like YouTubers, I hear YouTubers, they talk about we're filming. It's like, you guys aren't filming. You have no idea what filming is all about. And what I mean by that is that filming, like when you watch video, like when I shoot video now, I know exactly the results that I'm gonna get. Like I'm watching on the monitor, I can see, I can tweak all the settings and get the exact exposure. But when you're shooting film, there's none of that. Like it's in the camera. And you're exposing, and you know what you're doing. Everybody knows what they're doing. But until you send it to the lab and get it back and they print the daily and you get to watch it, you don't know whether you got it or not. And it's costing the company $150,000 a day to operate. And you have no idea. So there's a lot of stress. Like if you have to do a reshoot, man, it's like expensive. It's expensive, you know. You have to get plus it's difficult logistically because then you have to get everyone to come back. All right, here we go. 4:37, 12 minutes. All right, there we go. We got coffee loaded in here. Reset our timer. Just go refill this. But like I was saying, so in motion picture production, you're shooting and the film is in the camera. And now we do have, you know, things like video assist but those are basically cameras that are, video cameras that are connected to the prism of the parallel. So the image comes through the lens and that actually goes to the film plate. The camera operator looks through a reticle, right, that has a reflection that reflects it up this tube, and on the other side of that tube, we've got a camera mounted to the actual film camera that we can see the actual feed from the camera. So we're seeing essentially what the framing is, but we're not actually seeing what the film is exposing itself to. So you don't get to see any of that until a day or two later, which is very. For everyone involved, it's actually quite stressful. That's why, you know, I see people talk in modern times talking about quote unquote filming, and it actually does irk me. One thing you always want to do is you always want to keep everything in line, like I'm, you know, preparing all the coffee as we go, because, you know, if you don't, there's many times you could just be doing your thing and then you suddenly realize that, oh, I did not prepare the coffee and now I'm in trouble. So we are trying to avoid the trouble. What is with these leaves? Why are there leaves in the coffee? You'll find all kinds of stuff in the coffee, like this is leaves. It's not bad or anything, it's just, why is it there? How did they not get rid of that? So let's have a look at the coffee. So here's the coffee. Again, this is the espresso roast. And it's fairly cool now. That bag is full. Imagine this much coffee, like, that you can have for espresso after you're ready. This is why a lot of people in the professional ranks at cafe, especially at the cafe level, can be very cavalier about the way they use the coffees, because there's really just they're used to a world where there's, a plethora of coffee here. You don't have a pound or so to worry about. We should have, this is the last roast of the espresso, batch number 4. All right. Kent, how are you? Good to see you. Plant says some big productions can cost over $1 million per minute. Oh yeah. When we shot Enemy at the time in 1997, it was the largest budgeted movie ever produced. I think our budget was $135 million. So it ran $135 million. So it probably had a running time of 120 minutes. So yeah, definitely. And when you're running a company of almost 200 people at $150,000 a day, I mean it's not difficult to get to those numbers. But that was crazy. So what I meant to say was that when we shot this scene, I was overseeing 3 cameras in the box with 3 different operators, and one of the operators was a guy from MovieCam, and MovieCam is or was a company that specialized in high-speed motion picture cameras, and this camera would run. So in a motion picture, a 35 millimeter camera, you've got 2 different types of cores of 35 millimeter film, and there are 400-foot cores and 1,000-foot cores. So whenever you look at the big movie cameras, like the Panavisions and all that have the big hump on top, those are 1,000-foot cores, and they last about 10 minutes, maybe 11 minutes of runtime when you're shooting with it. The 400s last about 4 or 5 minutes. But most of the time you're not shooting with 400-foot cores unless there's a very specialized reason, like you need to carry a small camera, like an Arri or something like that. Most of the time you're going to run 1,000-foot cores just because it's cheaper to buy it that way, and you won't have to stop and do film changes as much. So so the MovieCam camera runs at 90 frames. No, it runs at, I've actually forgotten the frame rate, but basically a 1,000-foot core in a MovieCam high-speed camera, which makes it look like slow motion, will consume a 1,000-foot core in 90 seconds. and we had 15 cameras total flying around the site, two like in helicopters. So the coordination of this is really important. Like we have to get everyone to roll at the same time, and then action on the talent, on the actors. Will and Gene were nowhere near this. Like there's a stunt guy driving the vehicle as it comes out, and two other stunt guys jumping over the car as the building explodes. But everything has to be coordinated. And we shut down this part of the city, and we're getting ready. We're sitting in the box. They gave us like waivers in case we get killed, which was kind of exciting. It's only exciting now that I haven't been killed, but at the time it was kind of exciting. So when you're working on a motion picture production and they're ready to shoot, the assistant director will normally they'll call the roll. They'll call for sound to start rolling, because the sound guy at the time would be on tape or would record digitally, but you want that sound to come up to, you want that, if it was in the old days of Nagra tapes, you'd want that tape recorder to actually spin up to speed, and then you'd want the cameras to spin up to speed before you called action. So since magnetic tape for audio was cheaper, sound would start first, they would roll sound first, and then they would roll the cameras, and then they would call action. And so we told production that, hey, we have 90 seconds. Once this camera starts, we gotta be ready to shoot. We gotta be ready to blow this building. So you hear it, and they call the roll. They called for sound to roll. Then they called the cameras to roll. 395. We're hearing the first crack now. And this movie cam, like it's not a. If you ever watch the behind the scenes of like movie cameras that are used for IMAX cameras, the big, huge 65, 70 millimeter IMAX cameras, they are so loud. Even like if you watch, you can see it on YouTube. They've got videos where they have like with I think it was like Skyfall or one of the Bond movies. It's just like. So the sound is like pretty much toasted with that. But this movie cam is like a high-pitched scream, like it's a banshee. So he starts the camera starts to spin up to speed, and it's like, and you're just like, holy God. And we're waiting. It's like 30 seconds have gone by. Camera's rolling, nothing's happening. They've already called the roll. They haven't called for action. As the camera reaches 65, 70 seconds, then they called the roll again. And we're like, wait a minute. We're trying to get on the radios, because we have an assistant director with us, because this is like one of the most important cameras. It's costing the company like $30,000 a day just to have the guy here. Okay, 1 second. Almost there. There we go. Good. So like I said, we're about 65 seconds in or 70 seconds into this reel, and it's about to end. Like we have to blow the building right that moment, otherwise we're gonna miss it. They call the roll again, and we're like, what's going on here? And the ADs are trying to call into the main production, and they can't get it, and they're like, all right, action! And then, so the camera runs out. The guy's like, camera reloads, right? And then the first AD is like, action! And then the whole thing just blows up. So the other two cameras were Panavision, like Panastar Golds. And they're fine because they have 10 minutes to run. But our camera's out, completely out. And I've got a video feed on it. And, all the producers are there. This movie cam totally missed the shot. And so we're working there. They're like the producer, Jerry Bruckheimer, is like, okay, so why don't you go and figure out, can we print it from the tape? And I was like, it's an 8mm videotape. Like, and video 8 is not very high quality. Like, it's compared to 35mm film, it's terrible quality. Because we're not using it for quality. We're using it for just so we can watch what happens, playback, just so that the directors and producers and actors can see what happened in the scene. And he's like, well, let's figure out if we can print it and slow it down to do this, to mimic the slow motion. So I called up some of the production houses that could do that kind of work, transfer it and then print it. And they were like, yeah, it'd probably be about $85,000. I was like, all right, let me go back to the guys. They're like, all right, let's do it. I was like, well, there goes $85,000. And then at the end of the day, they never used it because I think by the time they got it, I can't imagine that an 8mm videotape from that era would be worth blowing up to 35. And then when you project it onto, like, a 40-foot, 50-foot, 60-foot screen, 100-foot screen, I can't imagine that would be quite nice. Prabhupada says you're filming the new Marvel Avengers Doomsday film right now, and it's likely 2 million per minute. It wouldn't surprise me. Those guys spend so much money now. And remember, like, when I say that it was the biggest budget feature, at 135 million, that was in 1997. So that was 30 years ago nearly. So definitely budgets have increased. And the dollar has decreased in many respects. So the way that we work is very different today. And the way they work today, like, I went to visit a friend on set not too long, quite a few years ago now. And even in just that, and this is maybe 10 years ago, and the way that they did production is so different now, or then, I can only imagine now. And then, one of my old buddies in the business, he's a DP. He did a lot of the Mandalorian series. Like, he did, I think, the first 3 seasons, and then he was like, I had enough of this. But that one, I don't know if you knew about this, but when pretty much on the Mandalorian, instead of going on location, they're on a big stage that has this huge LCD screen or LED screen that totally can surround them, floor and ceiling, and then you can tie it, so like you can project like a background, right? Like a background. Let's say you want to project Tatooine, and you're on Tatooine, and the camera's looking this way, right? When you pan the camera, like if there was just a big screen, you'd see that screen kind of change, right? The aspect of the screen to the camera, right? But if you were in the real world, as you pan, it just goes with it. They have it now so that the camera, so that the background not even projection, but the background screen locks to the perspective of the camera. So as the camera pans, so does the actual image that's on that screen. It's so wild. I went to go see that at the NAB show one year. Ari was doing a demo on it, and it was like, oh my gosh, that is just insane. Like, what they can do today is truly, truly amazing. And way beyond like what we would do with, like, blue screens or green screens in the old days. Like, if I was to go back to the business, I would have to learn it all over again. Almost there. All right. Let's see what we got here. Hello to you, Keone. Good to see you. Calpran says PTA's new film was filmed on VistaVision. Absolutely insane celluloid. Oh, nice, nice. I mean, I don't know how it works now, but like, I can only imagine that comparatively to like shooting digital, I mean, film adds a whole different level of cost and stress. Like I said, like, you know, if you got with digital, you shoot it and you're taking the feed directly from the camera itself as the camera sees it, so you've got everything in front of you. So there's really been, unless there's something they want to rewrite or do something, I think it's really wiped out a lot of the need for reshoots due to, like, you know, film errors. Like, one of the big things that we were always careful with is when there's something called the gate. So as the 35 millimeter film runs through the camera, it runs on a gate that's a pressure plate and a gate that holds it up, and then the shutter exposes the film, right, to the light. Well, there's a gate here that holds it all together, and as it runs through that, you know, the camera operators are very careful to clean it and keep it like perfectly pristine in there, because if there should be like some kind of dust or speck on it, and it's on the back side of it, I think it is, where the emulsion is, and it scratches the emulsion, you're hosed, like totally hosed. And I don't mean just the camera operator, I mean the entire production is hosed on that day, or whatever was damaged, because that film becomes practically unusable, or at least in the old days, it was practically unusable. Nowadays, with more modern digital manipulation imaging, I think they could probably just cut that out. And with the digital stuff, like especially with Marvel doing the cuts and that kind of like production, with the CGI, it's so much more advanced. Okay. I just have to check and make sure that I know where I am, because when you've got all this stacked up and you're doing it over and over again, sometimes it's hard to remember which batch you're actually on. Like, I was just thinking now, are we on the espresso or are we on the client's requested coffee? So Ken, I am roasting right now. Well, now I was finished. The last batch that just came out was the espresso coffee, which is about a 30% blend of, which is a blend of 30% natural and 70% washed. Now we're dealing with one that is 60-40, that is a Nicaraguan, and it is a Nicaraguan, and it is for another customer of mine who was asking, hey, can you make me one that's a little bit heavier on the natural? All right. Brian wants to know, who's PTA? I'm not sure who PTA is. Prince. I think Prince. What's up, Mark? How are you, babe? Good to see you. Peter says, I'm going to get a drone and underwater camera to do events. Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Katie says, you're filming quite a few movies, television here in Thailand. Cost has a lot. So that's what I'm curious. I mean, when I saw Alien Earth, it looks like they actually shot part of it in Thailand. Do you know if they shot that there? Because I didn't look it up. But our friend says, I could not believe they took 6 months or whatever for the last season of The White Lotus. Totally too long for an 8-ep series. Well, you know, if you ever watched Doctor Who, man, how long did it take for them to come out with this other? Like, this is one of the problems in like modern times, I think, with television, is that you have these seasons that like for example, here's a one. So Star Trek Discovery, which I really like, but a lot of Star Trek people hated it. And I wonder, and Brandon Braga, I read an article about him, an interview with him. They was talking about the last season, and I guess which is the 5th season of Strange New Worlds. And he said that Strange New Worlds is going to be 6 episodes. I'm like, 6 episodes? What the? And even Brandon Braga was upset about it because he was like, when you had like Voyager and all these other series that ran 23 episodes a year, sure, you're going to have episodes that are weaker than the others, but you have now, your audience has this time to grow with the characters, to get to know the characters over a long period of time. But when you're talking like 6 episode seasons, how do you even care? Like, and I think maybe that's part of it with Discovery is that, those people that hate it the most are probably like TNG nerds or TOS nerds, and that want, whatever, but they just don't have the time to grow with those characters. They made 5 or 6 seasons and 60 episodes? You could do 60 episodes in 3 seasons in a normal, in the old school. I guess in like shows that endure, like let's say Big Bang Theory, Friends, things like that, part of the reason I think people connected with them because they had so much time to connect with them. Kaplan says, just the excuse to live in resorts. I mean, why not? Why not? And Mark says, now AI changes everything. It does. Like, did you see that? What's her name? Kelly Hollifield? There's an AI actress that SAG-AFTRA is upset about. And evidently there's a whole bunch of like agents that are clamoring to represent her. And I was like, why would the AI actress should naturally get an AI agent? That way the agents will get pissed off. Because the agents only see their 30% cut. Or maybe it's 15, I don't remember. All right, we're getting closer. We are now 408, but this one's a little bit different. I'm going to go a little bit, like that was the espresso, so I'd like to go a little bit deeper, so now we're going to pull it back and not go so far past first crack. Like we're in the middle of first crack right now. All right. All right, just bring the heat back up a little bit, and then we're going to roll again. Kenny says, PowerPoint, that is probably true. It also depends on when they start filming because of the rainy season, but I heard from people who work on films here that oftentimes the producers drag out filming. Oh, wow, really? I wonder why they would do that. I don't know any producers. I never worked with any producers that dragged out filming. They were like, we need to get it done. We're going to work you to death. All right, now we will be switching gears to just a solo natural. More minutes, a few more moments in that cooling tray. Telfan says PT is an auteur film director. He has made The Master, Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk, Paul Thomas Anderson. And There'll Be Blood. How much has the import tariffs affected your green? Well, coffee prices have, a lot of what we have access to right now has been in country for the last several months, since before the tariffs really started kicking in. But the price has started to increase. Like this last week, I was looking at the invoices and the prices went up by 5%. I think the tariff right now still is at 50% on Brazilian coffee. So if we get Brazilian coffee, that should be fairly high. One of my friends was kind of pissed off because he had a whole contract forwarded. Well, he had a whole contract signed on, a couple containers of Brazil, but had not taken possession of them yet because they hadn't left the country. And so he's kind of like, pissed off because, if it comes in, he's got to pay another 50%. That changes the game, especially when you're dealing more. He's more of a premium coffee roaster, I think. So cost is definitely more sensitive in his realm. It's not to say that it's not sensitive where I work out of, but definitely in his sector it's a little bit more sensitive. My clients tend to be a little bit more cognizant of what's happening with the tariffs, as well as they're not necessarily buying on price. So what I look for is in a batch of coffee, especially when you're dealing with natural processed coffees, I'll show you. You can see here there's these low density coffees, what we would call Quakers or floaters, and they just don't roast the same way as the rest. So you take those and we just toss them. And so you kind of look for those in here, and then you also look for other potential defects in the coffee. But as you can see, this coffee, compared to the last batch, which is the espresso, this one is a very much lighter roasted type of coffee. So this is just a little bit past the end of first crack. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I saw this bean floating in there. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but if I put this bean right there, you can see that there's a difference in color, right? That one's darker, and I was like, what does that dark burn mean? And it's not a burned bean. If you look at this side of it, it actually is correctly roasted. What this is this is the natural processed coffee, and this is a little bit of the dried mucilage that is remaining on the skin or the parchment. And as you can see, that flakes off. Whoa. Revealing their normal color. That all into the bag. So we put these back in the bags and they get stored this way, and then when we package them from the bags. starts, and then the next batch is roasting. This is what I like about this roaster and other types of commercial roasters, that you can do multiple batches. Some roasters, even commercial roasters, like if you have like the what's it called, the Diedrichs, like the Diedrich IR12, which is a nice quality roaster. They say you're not supposed to do this. Like, you're supposed to roast to get maximum efficiency out of the machine. You're supposed to roast and cool separately. So you roast, drop it in, cool it for 4 minutes, then go back and roast. And because of the way that the air system works, I don't like roasters. I mean, I prefer not to have roasters like that. I want roasters that I can just turn and burn. Because, otherwise now you've got 2 batches an hour versus 4 batches an hour. And for me, it's not necessarily about trying to make more money out of it, but more about, I just want to get it done, right? If I have to make, 8 roasts and I can do it in 2 hours versus 4, I would rather have it done in 2. Oh, well, maybe that's all about the money again, because especially if you have someone roasting for you, it costs you less. Okay, so now we're just waiting for the next roast batch to roll out. So we're at 347 degrees Fahrenheit on that, and we're pretty much getting into the Maillard reaction phase of the roast. Mark says, I'm enjoying the old school espresso. Hard to come by these days. I don't mind lighter roast for pour over, but espresso would be, you come by any time, my friend. Just let me know when. You can have some of what I roasted today. Oh, 63 minutes. All right. It feels like it's getting warmer. I don't know if it's because I've been standing next to a hot roaster or it's actually getting colder. Let's see. It was pretty cold. It's like the first truly cold day of the fall. Yeah, it's still pretty cool out here. Yeah, it's almost time to get the heater back in here and make it hot. And then have to deal with like carbon monoxide fumes. One of the things when we have the wood oven mounted in here, like I finally figured out last winter. I was like, okay, so we got the wood-fired oven back in here. This roaster pulls so much air through it that it sucks the air out of it reverses the airflow from the wood-fired stove. So if you try to if you're running this and then you try to start the stove, man, it's disaster. Like, you're getting carbon monoxide poisoning, smoke is coming in here, and it's just misery. So the key is to start the fire first, get that really going so you got good flow going through that stack, and then turn this on. At least that's my theory. We're going to be trying that this winter. All right, well, that's pretty much it, I guess, for today. We've been here for a little while, so I think we're going to do another one tomorrow. I think. If not, I'll post about it. So, good to see all of you. Thanks very much for hanging out with me again here in the coffee Q&A. So back again probably tomorrow and let you know. So hope you have a great one out there, and see you next time.